The significance of the title of the book. When you look globally at human history and start analyzing its nuances, you will be bound to come to a conclusion that humanity is generally progressively going forward in any respect, in its existence, in its way of thinking, and its rate of modernity. However, you will also understand that in order to get where it's now, it had to have undergone prior experiences, prior events, epiphanies, realizations, and most importantly for our purposes, struggle. And speaking of struggles by which humanity reached a chance of growth and development, whereby solutions have had to be discussed in order to reach resolutions and to create a workable environment. My life is no different. Everything, all my ups and downs, all my golden years and Great Depression ones too, have altogether been building blocks masterfully devised to its eventuality of its working out. Every experience that, in illusion, seemed to be leading towards a dead end have brought me towards drastic directions to new stepping stones that created room for character growth. Character is what makes a person stand out, what defines a person, and what allows a person to find his standing and place of influence in this world. Also, it is what better shapes you toward coping with harsher experiences as they grow in their level of difficulty through the passing of the time of your existence. At the same time, it gets easier when you go further in life because your character is increasingly made stronger spiritually through the accumulation of your experiences that have been processed, which better prepares you for later hardships. If an experience hasn't been processed, you don't grow from it because inextricably your spiritual and emotional growth is stunted. Many people don't want to sit and draw conclusions from their life experiences due to resistance to facing pain or due to wanting to just flow through life and postpone their attempts to understanding the significance of their experiences because of the fear of what they might find in the process that might force them to face the very grains of pain that they doggedly try to avoid from experiencing. Needless to say, throughout my story, I hope you have noticed great character changes, maturity, and growth manifested through Mom's and my own struggles. Furthermore, my book, I hope, has touched upon deep existential thinking about the organization, the revolving of the universe, not in the sense of its scientific makeup, but the regulation of it in a way that my readers can see that everything just miraculously works out for everyone, young and old, poor and rich, desperate and fortunate. What I mean is that in the mayhem, amidst no hope, the light at the end of the tunnel brings forth the hour to move on and go further with new experiences that tangle and untangle, creating a perpetuated memory of survival and victory through it all. As human beings, that part is valuable and precious to understand and appreciate because it gives us purpose and foresight of knowledge of what we are striving for. In contrast to that, while we wallow in its haze, we are unable to see the big picture of everybody's or even our own role in the world as we are unable to understand the point to our experiences in great scheme of things. For example, when we commit ourselves to something or follow our passion, we follow it almost blindly because we don't know what it would bring about. Yet, in retrospect analysis, you essentially start understanding and feeling God's very own hand upon your life. Those that attune to His Spirit, of course, can do that. You only can ascertain God's reasons to a certain struggle after you stand aside and think about that period of discomfort, of nuisance, of deep displeasure, I must say. But you will not understand the reasons of everything that happens to you completely until you are face to face with God, I believe. You can, however, question God and seek for answers to reach insights of God's maneuverings in your life through His Spirit and become a bystander. When you are amidst all the chaos, your perspectives on life are greatly skewed. Therefore, you have to give it time to cool off and process it, which is what I call reaching a bystander view. Upon writing this book, I had to reminisce on my life and face my pain headstrong, which at times was difficult. However, can you give me permission to start carefully preaching about the ultimate hand that orchestrates everything about, a mind in which we live in? Even though I expect readers of all kinds, of all backgrounds, of all philosophical standpoints, and I venture to say the taboo word of all religions, what I ask from them is a chance. through the continuing narration of my life in my sequel, called My Spiritual Fight, to introduce my reasoning, my findings, and most importantly, my understanding and relationship with God through my older years of living. So please give me a chance regardless of our differences, and through it all, I ask that you continue to keep an open mind, because in many places in my book and the sequel book to come, I believe that some of you have potentially developed an urge to argue or disagree. One of the many things that readers need to understand is that my story is built upon hardcore facts, which are indisputable, but some parts of it, that is everything in between those facts, however trivial or major they have appeared throughout the content of my book, are the mortar, the subjectivity of thought that connects those building blocks of the overall structure of my story. A point to note, though, is that the subjectivity is native to my perspective, which could, in turn, be foreign to some, and to some cases be even distasteful to you. But my challenge to you all, stick with it for you to further understand life from the lenses of my own. Stick with it to give yourself a chance to grow. Stick with it for you to understand what many have ignored. One day I had a friend who texted me while I was riding on the bus asking, "Alina, what are you doing for the rest of the day?" "I will be writing my book," I answered. "Would it be like Anne Frank?" he asked, since he knows I am Jewish. No, Anne Frank's is a diary that had no intention to be published. The content of my book will be organized coherently in a sequential manner into a full-fledged autobiography, along with relevant family history, with a committed intention to be published, I replied. "Was your intention in embarking on such a venture?" He continued interrogating me with curiosity. "I have a lot to tell, and I want to impart my views on to other people and pull it all together to make my argument resonate as deep as possible in their core through an appealing sense of logic," I replied. "Please, however, I hope that you didn't expect just simple narration of events. Some parts I felt myself at liberty to pushing strings, pressing buttons, challenging people's train of thought, which mostly has been apparent as I built material through the story. I know in some parts of it I sounded cruel, but the purpose of it was to be able to penetrate through people's senses." So that is what you can expect from me as the author for the next sequel book. And know that I am tough in nature. I give tough love. Since all of us need reasons to do something, my intentions have been loyally divulged. However, the question still remains as to why I titled my first book as such. Everything is married to its own reason. So here we come at the explanation. Even though we live in one physical world, every person is inside their imaginary world that he has created, that he has constructed, that he has excluded and included, of course, all in one's own mind. When we plan our life in a smaller scheme of things, we follow our own providence, but the difference between the ultimate mind that we live in and are a part of is that our plans formed in our mind don't foresee the details of the exact occurrences that we have planned, of the exact things that will be done or even said during these events, while the ultimate mind in which we are a part of predicts it all, and his will, one by one, comes to consummation like the falling of the dominoes, one affecting the other, and hence the very prize that brings us forth to the present hour, even with the interruptive attempts of the evil one, Satan. God sees the purpose, yet we see none. It's like we are floating in space, moving hither and moving thither, all for the unknown, as God places desires and ambitions in us for the execution of His perfect plan. The only twist to the world is that it is unknown to us. Yet inside the mind, the stream of events are moving towards an ultimate purpose that is the very goal. While you do one thing for one purpose in God's kingdom, in God's mind, your act is done for another reason that would have never dawned upon you to be so. In essence, this world is the one huge web. One stimulus affects the other, in which He is the ultimate author of our lives, the ultimate composer. With that said, I want to express that I strongly believe that there is an inspecting mind over the doings of our world that analyzes the hearts of where the intentions lie in every individual and the righteousness of them. Even if the person's intentions are amiss or ill-intentioned, God uses it for his purpose. It's impossible to say that the only mind that exists is those of humans. Everything that is seen as created is carefully thought over. While a person's mind builds houses, creates computers, narrates stories, human beings don't physically create with their hands the biology, the revolving of the earth, the days and the nights, the stars, the origination of foods, the natural elements found on the ground, and many, many more. Humans take what has been created for them, manufacture and process it to their own satisfaction, but the stuff made from scratch is not their originality. The fact that there is a watchful mind over us, there is no qualm. But to those that still do doubt, give me a chance to build on the reasons to my belief in my sequel, my spiritual fight. Nevertheless, as I slightly mentioned before in different terminologies, I will reiterate it again more directly that I believe that this book has been highly controversial, and I don't mind it because I think by writing it and putting it into press, I have challenged those that like to sit in the comfort zone of their thinking. Does it have a bias? You bet it does. After all, it is about me. It is what surrounds me. It is what touches upon my heart. I told my story in a chronological manner as it happened, as it was recollected, along with necessary background information and some graphic and even shameful parts. Of course, I can't help but maybe tweak and change details from the actual truth because, after all, I'm not perfect and my book upon its completion is not perfect. The only perfectly written document on earth is the Bible, and that is your own choice to disagree. However, to follow the perfection exemplary of the Bible, that's why it is good to have somebody else's perspective to corroborate the details, just like the Bible does so, which makes it more credible and more powerful in its message. In a steadfast attempt to following the Bible's example, though, I have tried to synthesize my story and everything that touches it through 3 different perspectives, more so of mothers, less so of fathers, and most of all of my own, which I believe has been the most integral source of information. I try to integrate the perspectives so that facts will be as close to the truth as possible. Furthermore, my account is to be expected to be separated into 2 books, just like the Bible is separated into the Old Testament and the New Testament. Originally speaking, the Old Testament is the New Testament concealed. The New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. My Old Testament is this book. Everything is married to its own reason that will complementarily ensue itself to be the New Testament. My spiritual fight that is concealed. Well, my spiritual fight that is the New Testament for me will be the Old Testament. Everything is married to its own reason revealed. In other words, the Old Testament is the New Testament foreshadowed, and the New Testament is the Old Testament fulfilled. That is how my saga will be structured. That is a very intricately elaborate play of words. What would come out of the completion of the 2, I hope it is an intrinsically genuine understanding, compassion, sympathy, and hope that some of you would even manage to relate to it, internalize its concepts, and apply its tools of attitude that you would display to the world. Maybe even find a way to the manifestation of forgiveness of each other. To some of you, I hope it will be a tool that will help you cope with your own emotional life roller coasters. All of this, I believe, will make your identity of yourself strong and steadfastly unmoving. As the author of my book, upon choosing material to write, I have executed it through my perception of life. Generally, our perception is bound to be selective and to some extent inaccurate. We remember things that are of significance to us, but maybe other events were significant to others. However, the argument that I've tried to weave together is that every experience, every era of our life, my own specifically, has happened for a greater purpose, for the purposes of our own good, for our own prosperity, and most importantly, for the ultimate plan that God has set us forth, which I will further build my argument that nothing on this earth is a coincidental manifestation. It all comes from above. All the blessing and the struggles too that are blessings in them and of themselves. Therefore, the title of the book is a bold expression of my belief that I've come to understanding that everything is married to its own reason. When I first introduced this title to my friends, many were confused. What you mean by married? I kind of wanted people to start thinking for themselves than ask, but maybe that wish was premature because they hadn't been acquainted with the content of the book. But to reiterate, I purposefully chose an indirect manner of expressing what I mean, simply because I want to provoke thinking. I don't want the message to just be handed on a platter like a simple-minded title, such as Everything Happens for a Reason, which is what it technically means. But the meaning I chose is deeper than that. Therefore, I want folks to put forth thought to its true meaning. Please think what the qualities of marriage are. One is born, and so is the other, which hopefully is a combination of a positive and negative charge. And upon circumstances, nice serendipities and proximities will help. They get connected. Their lives enmeshed. They are biblically one flesh and blood. So I believe it is the experiences that construct our life. The experiences are physical that later turn into memory, which constitutes for the word everything. The experiences we go through, events, ideas, thoughts, intentions, mistakes even, forgets and losses, everything includes it all. Yet the reason for the coming of such experience is predestined, I believe. It is planned. The reason, figuratively speaking, is hovering above the experience right after its unfolding, yearning to connect to that experience in a spiritual sense, as if to marry, as if to forever become one. Just like some believe that every human being has their own appointed guardian angel, so does experience have its own appointed reason. Yes, which likewise I would continue to say that I believe that marriage is someone's destiny, a match made in heaven. Not everyone is suited for it, but as you will find in the development of my belief in God, I don't think anything happens outside the scope of God's intentions, even the horrifying parts of our history, of which similar concepts are probably mentioned in different manner. You will later see how God continued to use my struggles to his advantage and to obviously mine own. Think further, however, about marriage. In a sense, the institution of marriage between a man and a woman has been blessed and created by God to represent the ultimate marriage when Jesus comes to land, biblically speaking again. Fear not, for you will not be put to shame, and do not feel humiliated, for you will not be disgraced. But you will forget the shame of your youth, and the reproach of your widowhood you will remember no more. For your husband is your Maker, whose name is the Lord of hosts, and your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel, who is called the God of all the earth. For the Lord has called you like a wife forsaken and grieved in spirit, even like a wife of one's youth when she is rejected, says your Lord. Isaiah 54:4-6. We as once were flesh and blood will be resurrected and spiritually married to Jesus. We will be connected to his promises, to his guardianship over us. However, that promise is only extended to those of us that have given our hearts to him in our fleshly life. Those that haven't done so and are new to this sort of thinking, if not convinced yet, give the next book a chance to more fully understand my perspective on this, as it might allow you to eventually side with my beliefs or even not. who knows? What's important is that you will be informed. Until Jesus was introduced to me, which will be described in greater detail in the following book, I was not of this opinion myself, and more assuredly I will tell you that I didn't see the world as clearly as I do now, after I submit myself to walking hand in hand with His Holy Spirit. He is the one that has helped me compose the story and saw it through all of its steps to publishing. Nevertheless, the marriage between a man and a woman that we understand today is the representation of the marriage between church that acts as the bride, the believers, and the groom, of which is Christ. I'm not going according to the twisted implications of other forms of marriage of this era. I only stick to the one that the Bible upholds, because that is what my life is based on, and this is a depiction of my life. So I promise this is not for the purposes of discrimination to any that are of different track of mind. Generally, in that form of marriage, the husband has to take care of his wife, lead the family spiritually, and be the head of the house. The same is for the ultimate promise of marriage between Christ and the body of His church. Christ is our ultimate leader. He comforts us and is forever connected to our heart and soul to those who have let Him in, however. So if you think about it even further in the sense of my title of the book, everything is the physical history that has happened on this earth, or more specifically to you as the individual. That history, the events of our life, later on are resurrected into becoming abstract memories that eventually settle in us in their nature and become heavily ingrained inside our character, becoming a precious part of our being, our wholesomeness, just like we are physical properties of the earth, our history, our story is a physical property of us as it happens. When time passes, though, it becomes abstract in our mind, yet bearing some unseen but maybe noticeable weight in our consciousness. Each experience that we are going through is married in a spiritual sense of the word, just like we are promised to be married to Christ in the spiritual connections, to a reason, other word, purpose, that is something unseen yet wanted, just like Christ is yet unseen but wanted. We are tangible just like experiences are as they happen. We are brides to Christ, who is intangible, just like experiences are brides of the intangible thing that is reason, who is the groom, that are even eventually promised to be married to each other, just like we, tangible beings, are promised to be married to the intangible concept of the coming of the Christ. We are later on promised upon our marriage with Christ to be resurrected and to share the same substance of our body makeup as Christ's resurrected body. Likewise, upon the marriage of certain experience, with its appointed reason, the tangible experience turns into a resurrected form of memory that shares the same intangible and abstract makeup of its groom, reason. To further stretch this analogy, the reason loves its experience unconditionally and seeks its willingness to bond with the reason whenever we, the people who experience things, are willing to put forth the effort to think about our life and find their significance, which is why experience has a free will of its own, because many people refuse to burst their bubble. They rather dismissively put their experience behind and never conjure it up to their consciousness as they continue on with the unfulfilling flow of their lives, if people's experiences don't find their significance. This concept is analogous to how Christ loves all of us and seeks to be in similar bondage with us as the omniscient reason seeks connection with its lost experience. Therefore, just like experience has the power of choice to find its reason, we must be willing to connect to our Christ with making that choice. But some of our hearts are not ready. Some of our hearts are not softened to let Him do the work inside and be in unison with us. Nonetheless, in simple, less convoluted terms, what I mean about this is that what gives us comfort in our hearts is finding significance, purpose, reason to our experience, be it good or be it turmoil. To be able to process them, grow from them, and move on, we need to reach realization realizations along with epiphanies. Understanding the significance of experiences requires time, patience, and most of all, willingness in oneself to embark upon such a venture of self-scrutinizing of our inner soul. Furthermore, experience needs to find its reason to create a harmony within our mind, just like human beings need to find Christ to be in harmony within our life. Once we connect the dots of experiences to their significance, to their reason, we can interchangeably feel emotional and soulful healing, an amazing sense of closure, which allows us to healthfully move on from them. Good experiences as well can be more impacting on our character if you associate them with their significance. One funny realization is that the reason is always willing to find its experience, be it bad or be it good in its nature, just like Christ will always find us to comfort us and a fellowship with us in whichever mood we are in, or no matter how astray we've gone from Him. He will not deny Himself to anyone, to those who have made the decision to call upon Him. But our job is to answer the knocking door. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to him and will sup with him, and he with me. He always hovers above us and just asks the permission to come into our hearts, just like reason hovers over its appointed experience in complete faithfulness to unite. In conclusion, when an experience finds its reason, that reason cherishes the experience, the memory of it, the everything that heretofore has built up your character, and it keeps growing as long as you keep living. The reason creates significance to its happening. It harnesses it and brings forth acceptance and comfort. Reason is like a being that becomes the guardian of that experience, forever connected to it once connected. Just like in biblical understandings, we who are flesh are later on promised to be resurrected. To be destined to be married to Christ, to be forever one with Him. Also, in the same way, in our current understanding of marriage, let us think of everything which constitutes for a physical experience that happened and that later gets resurrected into memories, be the bride of its appointed reason, that is the groom. Together they go hand in hand, thought about as one unit, as complementary to each other, that makes our overall understanding of our life deeper, meaningful, conclusive, and more enriching. Now that is established, it is time for you to embrace yourself together, fill yourself with a tender form of suspense and excitement, and with that attitude, patiently wait for the account that ensues from everything is married to its own reason to my spiritual fight. Until then, find the brightest star in the nocturnal sky and rest assured that it is me, smiling on you. Fill your thoughts with an abundance of fluorescent bubbles. Don't forget to persevere no matter what, and keep your smile at all times, no matter how much life tries to break you. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and hope. And Jeremiah 29:11. And for I am confident of this very thing, that He who began a good work in you will perfect it until the day of Christ Jesus. Watch on YouTube, Just Do It by Jonathan Scheidfeld. Forever will I remain to be yours faithfully, smiley face. Find me on Facebook by Smiley Face to view all the pictures I have uploaded to depict the plot. Once I accept you, go to pictures and then albums.